Good morning and welcome to Business Morning on Channels Television. I'm Ini John McCall. Well, I missed you yesterday, but it was well worth it as Channels Television joined the world to celebrate the life of Queen Elizabeth II, the longest-serving monarch in the United Kingdom. Well, for Africans, her role as the head of the Commonwealth of Nations can hardly be overlooked. At the time of the Queen's accession, the Commonwealth consisted of 8 free nations, including Canada, Australia, India, and Pakistan. At her death in September, the organization had grown and comprised 54 member nations, representing about a third of the world's population, and 19 member states representing Africa. Under her watch, Britain has helped grow economies and boost trade within member countries of the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth has advised African member states on boosting their sectors internationally while managing risks like Nigeria's mining sector. The body has tackled environmental and security threats facing member countries, and it has also empowered ex-colonies with financial and resource aid and helped in debt payments. The Commonwealth has provided digital infrastructure and launched strategies to boost the economy in African countries. These are some of the benefits that African countries can count. So let's move on to the market now. We start with oil prices. There's a little change on Tuesday after rising in the previous session on concerns of interest rate hikes in the United States to tame inflation and curb economic growth, fuel demand in the world's biggest crude consumer. Brent's crude futures for November settlement fell by 7 cents to $91.93 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude for October delivery was $85.59 a barrel, and that's down by 1 cent. The October contract will expire today, and the more active November contract was at $85.20, and that's down 16 cents. The dollar rose against major currencies yesterday ahead of a slew of central bank meetings this week, led by the United States Federal Reserve, which is likely to raise interest rates by another 75 basis points to tackle inflation. For commodities now, copper prices slipped on Monday as worries about global demand were reinforced by expectations that the U.S. Federal Reserve will deliver a hefty rate rise later this week. Benchmark copper on the London exchange was down 0.5% at $7,723 a ton. Higher U.S. rates mean a stronger U.S. currency, and that makes dollar-priced metals more expensive for holders of other currencies, which would further weigh on demand. Still within the commodity space, the price of bread rose by almost a fifth in the European Union in August. As Russia's invasion of Ukraine, both major exporters of grains and fertilizer continue to disrupt global markets, and headline inflation accelerated. Global wheat prices have surged since February after the war halted grain exports from the Black Sea for months and restricted fertilizer shipments as Russian producers lost access to Baltic Sea ports that they had used to ship ammonia, which is a key ingredient in nitrate fertilizer. The average price of bread in the EU was 18% higher in August 2022 compared to a year earlier, and that's according to data from the Bloc Statistics Office. Showed yesterday the highest rise since December 2017 when Eurostat began compiling the statistics. We come to Nigeria now, and a major issue here. The presidential candidate of Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, has taken a swipe at the federal government, accusing it of being behind oil theft in the country. Mr. Obi was speaking as a guest at the Private Sector Economic Forum at the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry and described oil theft as an organized crime, while also suggesting aggressive private sector-led local refining. The Labour Party presidential candidate also emphasized the need for an overhaul of the country's security architecture, proposing multi-level policing from the federal to community security system.
Still not in the police government, period. Nobody here can steal oil. Nobody here can steal oil. For you to steal oil, a ship has to come in and load it, and then he has to approve it. Cost of governance, I don't need to tell you more about cost of governance. except to go and verify what happened in Anambra State. That is all I can tell you. I have an allergy for waste. As a person, and the same thing will apply in government. I know very well that federal government of Nigeria and the government today have removed power from exclusive list to concurrent list. For me, I will go, and for the government, we will go further than that.
Well, that's it. The issue of oil theft has been a major concern for Nigerians. As we see, the country has not been able to meet up with its quota. In fact, for August, the country could not even produce up to 1 million barrels a day, which used to be taken for granted before now. But it's an ongoing conversation, and we'll certainly follow up on that. For now, let's see what else apart from oil is going on in the commodity space. And joining us to have that conversation is Adesola Sumoni, all the way from Reading in the United Kingdom. He's an analyst with Financial Derivatives Company. Hi, Adesola, good morning.
Hi, Ini, good morning. Thank you for having me on the show today.
Good to have you. So it's the day after the Queen's burial. How much participation did you do, Adesola? Did you just sit at home? Were you part of those on the queue that we saw?
Thank you for that question, Ini. I participated at home. I watched the whole ceremony from home, but on Friday I was in London to kind of like pay my respects to the Queen. But I did not join the queue, and there's a lot of warnings that if you do not have to be in London, please don't go, because there was massive pressure on the transport infrastructure. A lot of trains were cancelled or delayed. Even within London, to get from one point to the other, it was mostly faster to walk than to take the train or the buses. So there was a lot of disruption of economic activity, both in London and the environs, because of the whole world, was coming to London to pay their respects to the Queen.
I do know that if it was in Nigeria, a lot of small businesses, retailers, would have taken advantage of it. So you would have a lot of people on the road, selling munchies, and things like that. Did you have that?
Indeed. So I would say that first, there was a bank holiday yesterday, as for the Queen's funeral. But I would say that this, and a lot of economists in the UK will also tell you the same thing, that this the morning period as well as the bank holiday kind of slowed down economic activity in England. Some estimates are like, there are some estimates that show that, it has further increased the risk of recession. But also there are some gainers, like you mentioned, there are florists, flower sellers in London, coffee sellers in London, the hospitality sector in London also gained from, the flock of people in and around London to pay their respects to the Queen. However, there was also sharp reduction in other areas. Many shops, many stores were closed. Many businesses were closed. Even some hospitals were closed because of paying their respects to the Queen. And some economists have said that this increases the risk of recession. Already in the UK, the economy was weak already going into Q3. We have inflation at record levels at the 40-year high. We have the cost of living crisis. We have energy prices also at record high. So the economy was weak already. And then adding this unexpected bank holiday and the morning period, I think that's further weakened the economy.
Yeah, but I mean, as you mentioned, it's a win on one side and well, not so win on the other side because of the bank holiday. But as you noted, a lot of hotels and hospitality, edibles, eateries, for those who stayed open, I think they smiled home yesterday because, I mean, and you still have them. Everything hasn't gone back to normal. You still have a lot of visitors back there. And these people would need to do transportation. They would need to feed. They have children. They will buy gifts back home. So I guess it's not altogether gloomy.
I mean, yeah, like you mentioned, the gains were kind of concentrated in and around the London area, right? So shops in London, taxi drivers in London, they made a killing over this weekend, right? But all around the country, in other parts of the country, I mean, even many malls were closed yesterday to pay their respects to the Queen. Even McDonald's was closed yesterday, to honor the Queen. Tesco's, the huge, grocery chain stores, all of them were closed yesterday as a form of paying respects to the Queen. But in London, the pubs in London, the hotels in London, the florists in London, the cab drivers in London, they all made a killing yesterday. Over the weekend, actually, over this weekend.
What about the parks? I learned some parks closed.
Some parks. Oh yes, some parks were also closed. But those in London, I mean, Hyde Park in London kind of streamed the bearer. So there's a lot of people in Hyde Park and some of the huge parks in London. But outside of London, outside, in the southeast area and other regions of the UK, I mean, all of them were closed to, to pay their respects. But some huge parks opened just to stream the burial. I mean, some were open in Edinburgh, in some parts of London and some parts of Scotland as well.
So what's the situation this morning? The morning is still hanging in the air. Are businesses opening up? Trains, are they back? Some flights were cancelled. What's going on this morning?
I think things are gradually moving to normal. A lot of world leaders are traveling back to their country, so there will still be a lot of activity today, but things are gradually moving to normal. Like you said, there was a lot of flights were cancelled over the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, even yesterday. I had a friend who was in London from DC. His flight was delayed significantly by over like 5 hours. And that happened to quite a lot of people. But I think by today, things are moving back to normal. As you know, school is resumed today. My daughter is in school. I have work today. My wife has work today. Everyone is going back to work today. So yes.
Adesola, you should have been in London. You would have helped us to take a picture with the vice president.
Indeed. I mean, yeah, should have. Well, yeah, just rather escape the madness.
All right, so oil prices are down. The dollar is gaining just on the assumption or expectation that the Federal Reserve is going to hike rate again. And then we already see commodities reacting adversely to it. It doesn't look like there's an end to this.
Indeed, Ine, like you mentioned, the U.S. Reserve, they're expected to meet this week, and the expectations is that, they're going to hike interest rates by 75 basis points, which, while it may help to, rein in inflation, which is at record levels, it also has the tendency to kind of precipitate a recession, right? So what is happening is that there are concerns that, recession, an imminent recession would also impact a lot of commodities, right? And there's concerns on that and also the expectations of an interest rate hike, particularly in the US, and many other central banks are going to follow suit in the coming weeks. Those expectations are kind of strengthening the US dollars. Like you mentioned, we've seen the US dollar strengthen against a basket of currencies, which is kind of making oil, which is denominated in US dollar, to be more expensive to holders of these other currencies. So those are the two main factors that's affecting oil price on the demand side. On the supply side, we see OPEC. You mentioned this, Ine, that OPEC Plus is really, really struggling to meet its production quota. We see for July, the output gap for OPEC Plus was around 2.8 million barrels per day. For August, it was around 3.5 million barrels per day. And Nigeria is one of the countries who is struggling to meet its production quotas. Like you mentioned, issues like pipeline vandalization and just siphoning, stealing oil on the side are the factors that are making Nigeria not to meet its production quota and also not to benefit from the oil price boom.
Yeah, that issue of oil theft is a major one for us in Nigeria. We've been on that issue, and we do hope that they find a way around it. But, when you talked about the dollar gaining value because of the expectation, not even that they've made the announcement yet. And we have our MPC next week. And of course, the expectation, we've seen the inflation 20.52, food inflation also surging more than 20%, about 23 plus. So I think the expectation is that the MPC is going to increase interest rates. But do we see it translate to added value in the Naira like it's happening in the Federal Reserve? I'm wondering why.
I think for Nigeria is the transmission mechanism, right? The transmission from the policy decision and the policy instrument to the market. In the US, in developed countries, the transmission mechanism is quite smooth because of they have well-developed financial systems. But in Nigeria, financial system is not super developed. But in addition to that, many of the drivers of inflation in Nigeria are not monetary factors, right? They are usually like structural factors, things like security issues, logistics problem, things like that. So in terms of strengthening the naira by increasing our interest rate, the idea is that when you increase interest rates, it makes the cost of buying buying foreign currency higher, and as a result, people buy less, which kind of strengthens the naira, right? But in Nigeria, there are additional factors that that are driving the value of the exchange rate. We know on the supply side of US dollars, we know that the oil proceeds from selling oil is one of the biggest supply of US dollars into the country. We also have foreign portfolio investment, but in recent times, both foreign portfolio investments have kind of dried up because of the conditions, the economic conditions of the country. Investors are kind of taking tentative positions on Nigeria. But for the oil, as we are earning effects from selling oil, we're also kind of spending it to import refined petroleum products. In addition to that, there's huge demand there's this backlog of FX from manufacturers or from foreign companies that have operations in Nigeria. For instance, recently we saw how some airline companies, decided to pull out of Nigeria because they are unable to repatriate their profits back to their home country. This is also part of due to the dollar shortage and dollar challenges that Nigeria faces. In addition to that, we are seeing a huge migration of students, of people, seeking greener pastures or academics, going to school abroad essentially. And because of that, there's huge demand of US dollars in the country. So those are some of the factors that are driving the exchange rate and making the monetary policy, making the effect of the monetary policy kind of weak at this time.
And then we see the price of liquefied natural gas surging. Is this about Russia turning off its gas to Europe?
Essentially, yes. Essentially, like before the pandemic, no, not before the war, Russia accounts for around 40% of the gas supplies in the EU. And suddenly, because of the war and because of sanctions, EU countries are trying to wean themselves off Russian oil, and it's not going to happen overnight, right? So they're trying to there's this what's it called now, a phased reduction or they're trying to reduce their reliance on Russian gas, and they're trying to look for other exporters like the US. But the US currently is exporting at capacity, but it is still not enough to meet up with the demand coming from EU. We're also seeing the EU approach some GCC countries, like some Gulf countries, to kind of secure some LNG. But what happened is many of these countries have already sold their gas even before they extracted it. So there's this huge gap, right? And that's part of why the gas prices are at record levels. Now, in addition to all of this, recently, like you mentioned, Russia closed or halted production at one of its main distribution points or export points to Europe via Germany. That is the Nord Stream. So that has further complicated the issues. Now, in addition to all of this, there's rumors that traders are kind of like hoarding LNG at sea in anticipation of a price hike in Europe in the coming months. So all of these factors are coming in. And if we have a colder than expected winter, I think it's going to be really, really bad for many European countries.
Yeah, and then on top of it, as you said, Nigeria is just taking off its Nigeria-Morocco pipeline, gas pipeline. I wish we had done that years before now. Then perhaps Nigeria would have been able to supply to calm the nerves and all the needs, But I mean, we're just starting now, and we don't even have a timeline on when we'll finish. But what else is happening in the commodity space?
So in the commodity space, we have the price of palm oil increase marginally, really, because of Indonesia, which is the biggest producer or biggest exporter of palm oil, have kind of lifted up a ban on palm oil export. And we're seeing huge demand coming from India, in which is also the largest importer of edible oils, of vegetable oils. And we are seeing huge demand coming from India in anticipation of the Diwali festival, which is coming up, I think, in October. So that's really why we are seeing the price of palm oil increase marginally. And I think this is quite important because for Nigeria is quite a net importer of palm oil. As of last year, Nigeria imported around 600,000 nets. So sorry, there's a net deficit of around 600,000 metric tons. That is Nigeria. That's the mismatch between Nigeria's production and Nigeria's demand. And because of palm oil is also used for many products in Nigeria. If you look at the likes of Okomo oil, as the price of palm oil is going up, it's also going to affect their businesses. So I think that's quite significant for Nigeria. In addition to that, we are seeing the price of cocoa. Cocoa is kind of like trending downwards, but it should be trending upwards because we are seeing in Cote d'Ivoire, we are seeing excessive rainfall, particularly in the cocoa growing regions in Cote d'Ivoire. I think this is quite important because excessive rainfall kind of affects the harvest and it also creates excessive moisture in the excessive soil moisture, which kind of breeds this black pod disease. And all of these are going to affect the harvest and would affect the prices, would increase the prices going forward. So I think those are the factors, those are the key trends in the global commodity market.
All right, just the last morning, thank you so much. And it's harvest time here in Nigeria, so I guess we should expect prices to taper a bit, even though I don't see that. But thank you so much for your time, and do take care of yourself over there in Reading. All right, so we'll talk more about the issue of increase in prices, especially food prices, inflation, and as we take a look at the state of Nigeria's economy in just a moment. This is Business Morning on Channels Television. Welcome back to watching Business Morning here on Channels Television. Nigeria's inflation currently stands at 20.52%. That's for August 2022. It's the 7th increase month on month, and that's according to the National Bureau of Statistics. The depreciation of the local currency, that's the naira, disruptions in supply of food products, and an increase in the cost of production are the factors behind this latest increase. That's what the NBS says. But to help us drive this down, we have Dr. Muda Yusuf, the Chief Executive Officer of Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, here in the studio. Good morning, Dr. Yusuf. Good to have you. I think this is your first time in our new studio. So
exactly. I love it.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah, I love it.
All right. But I mean, the situation in the country doesn't look like something we should be laughing about. I mean, we see inflation at 20.52. We know that countries like Ghana have higher. I think their own is about 33 or something. But I mean, let's look home. And NBS is pointing to the issue of depreciation of the currency as driving inflation. Help us connect this.
You see, if there is any major source of lamentation today in this economy, either on the part of the citizens or on the part of businesses, it's about inflation. If the situation was just about inflation rate of 20.5%, it could have been tolerable. But the reality is much worse than that. In many cases, in many instances, prices have doubled, prices have risen by over 50%, in some cases even 200%. I'm talking of the items that the average Nigerians consume, or items that the businesses also use in the course of production. So the situation is extremely very disturbing. And just as you said, of course, a number of factors, and just as the president also said when he was addressing the Presidential Committee on the Economy, some factors are domestic, which we can deal with internally. Some factors are external. So the foreign exchange situation, of course, is a major one. Two components of it. There's the depreciation, which we all know about, particularly in the parallel market. Unfortunately, we have a situation where the parallel market is now becoming the major reference market or the default market because of the liquidity crisis in the foreign exchange market. Then, of course, you have the issue of acute scarcity of foreign exchange. So it's a double whammy. To some extent, of course, you have talked extensively about oil theft and all of those things affecting it. But there's also a policy dimension to it. If you had a much more conducive, much more sustainable foreign exchange policy, the situation will not be as bad as it is. So the policy component, I think, is something that we need to address.
What do you mean by a much more conducive policy?
No, what I mean is that the way we manage the foreign exchange is not a market. A good market will match demand with supply. It will match those who are buying with those who are selling. What we have is an allocation platform. And that is creating a whole lot of distortions and a whole lot of corruption as well. A lot of inflows are not coming in. Because this economy typically does not depend only on oil. We have other sources. Because it's a very big economy. Even with all the challenges that we have, there are still a lot of opportunities that can attract inflows into this economy.
But we have the RT 200, we have the 100 for 100, we have a lot of policies, we have the CBN, the lists of items, that will not have access to FX to import because they're supposed to be produced in the country. Are you saying these efforts and initiatives are not enough?
They are not enough. In fact, most of these efforts that you outlined are demand management efforts. There is no sufficient attention to the supply side. The only, what can also look like a seeming endeavor on the supply side is this RT 200. And again, there's an issue with it. If you say that the exporter should bring exchange rate in, foreign export proceeds in at 427 or 425, you are giving them, is it 200 or whatever per dollar? And they know that if you give them free access to their foreign exchange, they can sell it at 700, at 650, at 680. So they still feel penalized by the policy. So if you have a policy that is penalizing supply of foreign exchange into the economy, it's a major problem. And it's a major contributor, it's a major source of the crisis that we have in liquidity in the foreign exchange market.
So do you
in addition to the oil theft problem.
Do you think a merge of the windows, is it a possibility?
It's a possibility. And not even a merge. Let the market function. That is it. In any market, sustainable market, and there's a whole lot of logic in allowing market economics to prevail, especially in this kind of situation. If you allow the market economies to prevail in the foreign exchange space, we will have less of a crisis. People will bring in money easily. People will take out money easily. The kind of embarrassment we suffered with the airlines, we will not suffer that kind of embarrassment. We are too big as an economy, as a nation, to suffer that kind of embarrassment.
Wouldn't that be allowing a free fall of the naira and just allow it wherever it lands?
Is it not? In fact, the worst has already happened. If you talk of a free fall at 700, what kind of free fall again can you expect? And in any case, if you allow a proper market system, it cannot get to 700. Because right now, foreign direct investment, go and look at the data on capital importation. It has crashed completely. It's not because people don't have confidence in this economy, but you need the right kind of foreign exchange management framework to allow for capital flows. You need capital flows to strengthen your currency. If you are obstructing capital flows, then you are creating a major crisis. So, for me, some of the domestic things which the president also alluded to, but he did not specifically mention the forex, is to address this forex management framework.
Okay.
Then, of course, we have issues of the monetary aspect, that is CBN financing of deficit. That's the monetary effect of that on money supply. It's also fueling inflation. It's a major factor. It's also fueling even this exchange rate problem. Then, of course, you have the issue of energy cost.
Okay, but let's look at food inflation, because that's also a major one for Nigeria. It's at its highest level in 17 years, 23.12. And in that, you have imported food inflation at 5-year high, 17.94. Now, that Nigeria has arable land is no news. That Nigeria has the human resources, that Nigeria has the weather is no news. So I keep asking myself, isn't it possible for us to deal with, even if it's just the food inflation, must we import?
You see, there is no country that doesn't import. Even the countries that produced the most of food items, if you still check it, they still import some elements of it. But the point you made is very valid. We are too blessed in terms of arable land for us to be having issues with food. Now, first, we have this insecurity problem. It's a major factor. Even the little that we produce, which are produced essentially by these peasant farmers, we are not getting that production because of insecurity. So one way to deal with the food crisis is to deal with the insecurity problem. Because the biggest victims of this insecurity are the farmers, the villagers, the farming communities. So that is one. Secondly, we need to transform the agricultural sector with a lot of technology. We have quite a number of young people who are ready to go into agriculture. There's a huge opportunity there, both to feed our huge population and to export. But unless we apply technology to it, it's not easy to bring in these young people. And the old farmers, they are getting old. It's an aging population. We need to harness the energies of the young people into that space. But you cannot do that. They can't go and carry hoes and cutlasses. You know? So we need to see what we can do about accelerating the use of mechanization, machineries.
And all of this feed into our revenue and our debt servicing and the finances available to service our debts.
Of course, they are related, because it's all within the framework of effective, efficient macroeconomic management and getting priorities right. They are related. But if you set the priorities right, if you also create the right kind of policy environment, in some of these spaces, foreign investors can come in. I know what foreign investors bring. They bring technology, they bring new ideas, they bring innovation, in addition to bringing capital. But the environment has to be right. And you have domestic investors who are ready to take agri to the next level. But we need to create the environment for them. What is the cost of agrochemicals, agri inputs? You know, these are some of the things you need. What's the cost of acquiring machineries? We have some say that I don't have more than 2 or 3 tractors. They don't have. And these are predominantly agrarian states. So this is the kind of transition that needs to happen for agriculture. And it is not rocket science, for goodness sake. It's not rocket science. And we need to get the communities to also appreciate some of these things. Because I have seen some people, particularly those who are in sugar plantation, for instance, a lot of investment. We have been talking about backward integration in sugar. One of the biggest problems they are having now is the community problem. All sorts of issues from the communities, in spite of doing all sorts of things to support the community. But the community feels that they owe them everything, from schools to hospitals to roads, everything. You know, these are some of the challenges. But these things are doable. We are blessed enough, you know, to be able to escape all this situation.
I guess these are some of the questions that Nigerians should ask the politicians. I mean, campaign starts on the 28th.
Yes, yes.
So these are some of the things that Nigerians should be listening to.
We should interrogate.
Yes, when you see the politicians and their campaigning.
How do they want to do it?
Not saying they want to do it. Not saying they can make 1 naira to be a dollar, but how do you want to achieve it? Because words is so easy to say.
That is key. That is key.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Muda Yusuf. Always a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you very much.
And sharing your knowledge with us. We do hope that it will transcend beyond the talk, and someone is listening and will be challenged, to take it up. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
On
Thank
the
you.
program. All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we do have the markets for you here on Business Morning on Channels Television. Time for the markets now, beginning with here in Nigeria. We have Aneti Edet joining us for that. Hi, Aneti. Good morning.
Good morning, Ini.
Not a smiling market these days.
At all. I think it's not. It's what you'd even say. It's a global thing now, because all the markets. Yes, we weren't here yesterday. We had to observe the Queen's funeral. But just that same Monday, all the markets were in the red, so it's not just a Nigerian thing.
I think you call it a bloodbath.
Yes, you might call it a bloodbath, and no thanks to several factors, particularly high inflation, and then of course the central banks around the world all raising their interest rates. And
the threat of recession according to World Bank.
Exactly.
And the dollar gaining ground.
Yeah, the dollar, that's the supernatural currency. So, well, with that being said, let's turn straight to the market. This is how it closed this is how it ended at the close of Monday's trading session. We'd lost about 18.99 billion naira, which is what you might say about 19 billion naira. But so far, last week it was all the red. So the market continued that bearish sentiment which we saw last week. Last week we lost about 0.44%. And then yesterday, 0.07%. So in value terms, we lost about 119 billion naira. That's shaved off from this number here, which is just about 26.667 trillion naira. And of course, year to date, it is still positive, but just about 15.74%, while month to date is down by 0.8%. Now, take a look at the volume. The volume of transaction, it was down by 37.3%, but the value as well as the deals, they were up by 29.10% and 2.954%. So that's that for that market. Now, let's take a look at the sectoral performance. Sectoral performance, it was a mixture of colors there. You have the gray there, which is for unchanged, the green, which is for the gains, recorded by some of the key components there, and the insurance and the oil and gas. No thanks to Seplat, which fell by 3.9%. So that's why you see that red on that counter, as well as the insurance sector. So now to give us more insight into the equities market, let's talk to Peter Abe, who is an equity trader at Stanbic IBTC Stockbrokers. Thank you for joining us, Peter. Hello, Peter, can you hear me? Hello, Peter, can you hear me? Okay, so, all right, so I think I'll do the analysis by myself. Sectoral performance, it was mixed. Okay, so let's go back to the equities market. The Nigerian equities market, it's been suffering from the hemorrhaging that you see here. It's mostly because investors are concerned about the impact of high interest rate, coordinated interest rate hikes by central bank governors around the world. First of all, you'll be having the US Fed, which begins its FOMC meeting today. The Bank of Japan is also expected to raise interest rates next week. Nigeria's Central Bank Monetary Policy Committee, that's what the MPC, they will be holding their rates decision meeting. Of course, Nigeria's inflation has risen to about 20.52%. Of course, we had the unexpected rate hike, and now general consensus have it that the Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee is expected to raise or might raise interest rates at the next meeting next week. So all of that is coming into play into the market. At the same time, high inflation rate is on the minds of several investors. So most of them, they're just not comfortable. You know, there's no comfort zone. So more like the fretting for the market. The slowdown, it mirrored the global stocks all across the board, all across the world, from the US, from the United States to Europe, as well as Asian stock markets. They were all in the red. Everyone's concerned about high interest rates. Of course, the World Bank has also warned that economic recession might be coming in 2023, which is not just about some 4 months less from now, or three months less from now. So all of that is affecting the market. Now, let's move over to the smaller unlisted securities market. There we have it. It was a return to the bullish territory. It was up by 0.08%. In contrast to what we had on Friday, Friday was lesser. The market has been able to make some gains, and then at the same time, it recorded about 3 gainers. So now let's go back to our analyst, Peter Abe. He's an equity trader at Stanbic IBTC Stockbrokers. Thank you for joining us, Peter.
Thank you once again. Thank you for having me.
Well, as a trader, I would like to ask you, what's your fear about the market? The market is down by 0.08%, of course, not doing too well at the moment. Are you concerned about the effect of high interest rates by central bank governors around the world? Is that what's your concern at the moment as a stockbroker?
Yeah, I quite agree with you. I mean, all you said, it's a global concern, and that is also leading to many central banks hiking the interest rates. And of course, we are seeing that on the effect of that on the Nigerian exchange. I mean, if you look at it, the central bank will have its MPC meeting next week. That is expected following the increase in the inflation rates.
Okay, so at the moment, I would like to ask you, yeah, you have some stocks which you might call some defensive stocks. You have some stocks that, even though there's inflation, there's so many concerns, you might just give us just 1 minute, just that answer. What's your stock recommendation for today?
Okay, to be frank, it's quite hard at this moment, especially when we look at it's quite beyond the fundamentals at the moment. We have in the banking space, we have some favorite names there, even in the consumer names. Nestle is one of them, and even on the industrial, we have Dangote Cement and some other names, and other cements, which are favorite. So, I mean, if you look at them, fundamentals are fine, but like we mentioned, macroeconomic are still factors that stock investors are looking at before they could make their decisions in the markets at the moment.
Okay, thank you for that insight, Peter Abe. That was Peter Abe, equity trader at Stanbic IBTC Stockbrokers. So, I don't know what your take is. The market you have many options.
Even Peter is being very careful about mentioning a stock at this time.
Exactly.
I think it's just the realities of our time. Thank you so much, Anita.
It's a pleasure.
So let's move over to the next market. Now, that'll be the crypto market and what we see, if we see the numbers. The market is not looking any better than the equities market in Nigeria, unfortunately. The Fear Greed Index is still around extreme fear, 23 this morning, and that is extreme fear. And if we see the investor sentiment, obviously, means that, that's 22, extreme fear. It means that investors are still very afraid to get into the market, and we don't blame them. I mean, even Dr. Muda Yusuf, who was here, did say. And then it's a bloodbath for a lot of markets from yesterday. And then when we see the market cap, it's up 3.99% at 935.29. Still struggling to regain that $1 trillion that we managed to get last week. 24-hour volume is down more than 6% at 71.17 billion. And Bitcoin dominance is still within the 39% that it's been holding on to for some days now. The price of Bitcoin is down. I mean, it's up, but I mean, it's 19,000. There you go. The price of Bitcoin, and then 24-hour volume is 39.4. And then we'll see the price of Ethereum. I think this catches my eye because we had Ethereum merge last week, And we're wondering what's happening with that. What's the reaction to that? I thought that would kind of boost the price of Ethereum, but we haven't seen a lot of that. So even though it's in 24 hours, it's up more than 4%, almost 5%, but the price is still 1,300, not getting even close to that 2,000. 24-hour volume at 15.99. See the top gainers for today, USDC, well, kind of double digits there at 16, more than 16%, more than 12%, more than 10%. We have Rume Ofi now joining us for a conversation just before we draw the curtain. Hi, Rume, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Rume, what's happening to our Ethereum merge? I thought by now we will see Ethereum hitting 3,000, you know, because we're talking of it surpassing Bitcoin.
Yeah, the truth is, the industry, the space, the cryptocurrency space, is quite young, like I usually say, and I think this is the time to put all of the structures in place for it to really flourish. Ethereum merge has come and gone, and the industry cannot work in isolation of what is going on in the world today. You can see there's supposedly that type of possibility that there could be a recession, and this cannot work in isolation, and that is why you're seeing the price go down. But regulation is the main thing right about now, and all of those things are being put in place by some other governments in different parts of the world. So, for example, that of the U.S. Department of Treasury has called the public to provide feedback on the role of crypto assets. Right, this happened yesterday, and it's in line with what happened earlier this year, where President Joe Biden came up with an executive order on cryptocurrency that people should, the various agents of government should look into, you know, to put certain framework around it. I think that happened about in March last year or so. Yeah. So with that, we could see certain things being done appropriately. I know it's not done here in this part of our world, but I quite like how the US is going about it, being coming up with I think 4 key issues: consumer protection, mitigating illicit finance, promoting leadership, and global financial system. You know, Nigeria can actually also come with that and lead the rest of Africa in this industry, you know, by putting all of these things in place. They are saying, come and tell us, industry leaders, come, public opinion, we'll put all of this together and chart a course forward. They are actually putting this forward to see how far they can be in the forefront of this technology globally. So we as Nigerians that are leading this space from this part of the world, we need to also come together with agents of government, the financial watchdog here, to say, those of you involved in this space, how can we better position ourselves to be the giant of Africa in the blockchain and cryptocurrency space, so that we can be able to serve the rest of the world with our own unique part of the blockchain. We have people building products, not just cryptocurrency, but building blockchain products, Web3 products from this part of the world, and they are not yet recognized. So this is the time to set all of this, because when the bull market starts coming, everybody will just start chasing price and start doing it all over again. But now is the time to do all of this. Thank you very much.
All right, Rume. Well, I know you do have a lot to share. And after all, Nigeria is the first on the continent to have its own CBDC. So I guess that we should be leading and not be caught or overtaken by any other country. I do hope that, of course, as you said, that the government and the people can, investors and stakeholders can come together to make that work. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us, Rume. Enjoy the rest of your day. Well, that's where we draw the curtains today on the program, Business Morning. We'll be back again tomorrow. But before then, I'll see you at 1:30 when we'll be doing Business Incorporated to give you updates from the world of business. So enjoy your business day. See you at 1:30. I'm John McQuarrie.